Okay, this is a Snipe and Purple, a traditional wet fly spider pattern, generally fished down and across. It's a very well established pattern. My thoughts on these, my take on these spider patterns is basically we've got an underbody, and the soft hackle, as it gets pushed back in the current, provides this lovely lifelike appearance of a hatching insect as it's swimming up to the surface with the movements that the soft hackles will provide. You can also fish them dead drift, in fact, with on a check nymph rig or a Euro nymph setup. They can be quite effective in that way as well. But there's clearly some variation we can do. This is obviously a Snipe and Purple pattern, which is very well established. But you can vary these, use different underbody coloured silk, or even different soft hackles. You might want to put a trigger point in front, maybe a piece of peacock herl, a different colour thread, or even a bead. But yeah, this is a standard Snipe and Purple, tied on a size 16. Let's get the hook in the vise. Size 16, full in mill wet fly hook on 1 times fine wire gauge hook. The traditional pattern is tied using Persall's Gossamer in purple. I don't have any purple Gossamer silk, so instead I'm using just some standard Gordon Griffiths cobweb thread. Now what I've done is I just run some wax through the thread, and what that will do, it'll give the body just a nice bit of translucence appearance with the wax. Now you go almost to the point and then trim off the waist, and then we just go a couple of more wraps so we're at the point, and then we start coming back on ourselves. So it's again touching turns down towards the head of the fly. Okay, so we're now ready to tie in our snipe feather. So this is the snipe wing. You see the primary wing feathers along here. What the snipe wings have, we use what's called a covert feather, which is this feather, and this is like if you like, the bicep almost, at the upper part of the wing. It's close to the body, and these covert feathers sit nice and tightly on the upper edge of the wing. There's also some below the wing as well, but this classic Snipe and Purple is tied using these upper covert feathers. So this is the feather I'm going to select, that's the feather we're going to tie in. Okay, so we use the doubled hackle technique to wrap the feather. So I'm going to take hold in my hackle pliers and then pull the fibres back, and then I'm going to trim off the little triangle, which I can use to tie in with. Okay, so a bit of a loose wrap, and then tie it in nice and tight. Now one point I've just done, you can hopefully see how close that first fibre is to the wrap. Okay, so that means it's going to tie in fairly quickly, and because we're only going to do 1 or maybe 1.5 turns, that's quite important, that point. Now these feathers are extremely delicate, so I'm trying to apply as little pressure as I can, just the pressure that's needed. So that's going now, just starting to turn. So there's that's probably 1 turn to that point, and then this is now done, and that's all it needs. So now I'm going to raise my thread, drop the hackle stem, and then go around it, just with a couple of wraps to tie it in nice and tight, and then I can snip that off. Okay, snap off these stragglies. just flatten my thread a little bit. One more tight wrap, and now I'm ready for my whip finish. There we go, and that's the fly completed. Okay. Now what I'll do, I'll just drop a little touch of varnish on the top, on the head, just to make sure it doesn't come, I'm sure it wouldn't come apart, but just personal preference really. But there's another little trick that this does as well. I'm just gonna, you might have saw how the varnish runs down onto the fibres. Okay, now what that will do, that will effectively, if you like, cement those fibres in position where they're not quite, but almost perpendicular to the hook shank sticking out. And what that's going to do, that's going to ensure that as it fishes, we're getting a lot of movement in it, boing, and as these fibres spring back. So they've almost been glued with that little bit of varnish perpendicular to the thread, which I find helps. It's a personal tip, but not necessarily necessary. But you can choose to do that if you wish. Okay, so yeah, size 16, Snipe and Purple. Very well established pattern, really simple to tie, you see, just a couple of materials, but it's knowing the snipe feathers to use really.